And now your host of California MUFON Radio, Lorien Fenton.
Welcome, everyone, to the California MUFON Radio Show. I'm your host, Lorien Fenton. Wowie zowie. That's the only words I can use to describe what I have been through in the last 2 weeks since I have not talked to you guys. Oh, my God. I miss my MUFON family over here at IRN. I can't believe it. Oh, my God. You guys, I'm telling you, what can I say? I better get in the chat rooms. I got a funny feeling my little rant tonight's going to take on a whole new dimension by the time I get done. So let me get into the chat room. I knew there was something I was supposed to be doing. You know, I am like the world's worst radio talk show host. If it wasn't for MJ, nothing would happen. It's like I'd just be sitting here talking to myself all night. That would be so much fun, actually. I've done that. I've been on other networks where I'm sitting there and I go for an hour, and then I realize someone pops in and says, "Oh, you've been off air for 45 minutes." I'm like, "Oh, great. That's just great." Anyhow, so thank God MJ's behind the wheel. That's all I got to say here, because it just wouldn't be the same without him, that's for sure. And I would be able to get into the chat room. Let's see. I'm going to log in as a guest tonight. Let's see if we can do that. Let's log in as a guest. And I got to turn off all the notifications so I don't hear the little bell buzzing the whole time. There we go. Okay, so I'm ready to rock and roll. Okay, so where do I start? Okay, I got to the MUFON Symposium, and it was very interesting. They put me out in the lobby. I don't know if you guys saw the Facebook postings, but I was not in the vendor room this time, which was great. And I did request not to be in the vendor room because I assumed... Stupid me. I assumed that the other network that deals with MUFON would be out in the lobby as well. So I was kind of demanding that I be given equal casting to the other network. And that was great. And the new owners of the other network are actually pretty nice people. And, everything was good. They were in the vendor room. I was out in the lobby. Everybody's doing their interviews. Everything was good, except for two things. First of all, my hotspot would not work in the building. They put a dampening field that's like the cone of silence out of Get Smart over that stupid building, and you can't get a signal out or in. No one can make a phone call. I mean, it was unbelievable how these guys blocked us from doing anything without paying for it. They wanted $10 a day for you to get any access anywhere. It was insane. So, finally, after 3 hours of trying to get on Inception Radio Network, Late Night in the Midlands, and Revolution Radio, I tried all three to get connected to all three so I could do live broadcasting from the event and keep you guys posted on what was going on. I gave up after 3 or 4 hours. During that time on Friday, trying to hook up to all the networks, what happened was there was a press conference. And in the press conference was Andy Bishago, Mark McCandlish, Michael Sala, Michael Schratt, Corey Good, a whole bunch of people. And I had brought Aaron, my buddy Aaron, who is my tech guy for this weekend, and he helped me out a lot at the conference. I want to thank him for that. He did an amazing job. And he came along, and I said, "Hey, I can't get to this thing. I'm still trying to connect to all the networks, even though I'm supposed to be there, asking questions and, throwing slings and arrows, as I ought to be." And he says, "No, that's fine. I'll go for you." And I said, "Well, just the only thing I want out of it at the end, they usually ask if you want an interview with the guys, or if they don't, then you go up to them and ask them if they'll do an interview. And I want you to get Corey Good sitting behind my table at the end of that thing, or later tonight or tomorrow. Okay?" He goes, "Sure, no problem." So, of course, the first thing he does is the second it ends, and the guy says, the PR marketing guy from MUFON says, "Come on up and, I'll get you an interview with any of the people up here on the panel." He's the first one at him, and he says, my radio talk show lady and I want to, interview Corey Good, and I'm going to videotape it and everything. And the guy goes, "Sure, no problem." And he walks over to Corey, and they walk out in the hallway. They have a chat. He comes back in and says, "Yeah, he'll be down in about an hour, and all's good." And so Aaron comes back and tells me. So I'm like sitting there trying to to get connected, still never could. So we got the video camera set up. We got all the recording stuff set up. I turned away Ben Moss, and I turned away another person. I can't remember who it was right now. Frank. And I turned these people away that had appointments with me to sit in the hot seat and do an interview, even though I was only recording at this point. And Corey Goode never shows up. So later on that evening, about 7:30, I think, this is now 4:30, it's 7:30 when the dinner's going to start, he shows up and he's talking to my good friend Janet right at the entrance of this big lobby, and I see him across the way, and Aaron sees him, and Aaron goes, should I go talk to him? Should I grab him now? And I said, nope, let me do it. So as you guys all know, I am not shy with anybody. So here we go. I walk up, and Janet says, oh, Corey, I'd like you to meet my good friend Lorien. And he sticks out his hand and he looks at me, and I grab his hand, I shake it. I said, I know you, Corey. I've met you before. And I'm not real happy about the fact that you blew me off for my our interview. And he's dumbfounded. He goes, I didn't have an interview with anybody. I said, yeah, you did with me. I go, you made the arrangements with I think his name was Barry or Jerry at the MUFON press conference. He goes, oh no, I was going to come down in about an hour. I never made any appointment. So basically, there was a little lack of communication there, and I probably cornered him too hard and got kind of angry with him. And I basically said, well, I'll see you tomorrow and we'll do an interview then. Of course, I knew he'd never show up. Now, having said all that, I'm not too mad at Corey about all this. I'm more mad at myself, because what I should have done is I should have gone to his handler, which is this marketing guy that was with him, and this blonde lady that is a interviewer or a sorts that interviewed his wife. They were all kind of around him in an entourage situation. And I should have gone up there and said, look, we really need an interview for MUFON Radio, and I'd like to have it done, and just kind of quarter them all and let them be with him during the interview. Because I think what's going on with Corey is I don't think they're allowing him to do interviews with anybody that isn't pre-approved by whomever. So I kind of got that feeling as the days went by what was happening, because I saw him surrounded by his entourage. So I just figured, well, it's my fault. I should have done something different. And, I got to say, he was pretty busy. He was tired. He had a lot of things on his mind. I'm sure he had much more than that on his mind, because when I get to the next part, you guys will probably just all hate me. But you know what? I don't care. I'm pretty much at the point where the whole MUFON scene, the whole UFO scene, the whole craziness of it all, I'm just starting to wonder if anybody has any brains left in the whole group at all. Seriously, folks, I got home and I thought, this is it. I'm done. I don't want to do another MUFON meeting. I don't want to do anything. I got to that exasperated place again. But since then, I've snapped back, and now I'm telling you guys everything I feel about all this. So anyhow, so that was the first thing that happened. Now I need a sip of my coffee, because this is going to be one of those long rants. So okay, so that's Friday night or Friday afternoon into Friday evening. Then Saturday comes along, and I finally got a hold of Jan Harzan. Now, I love Jan. You guys all know that. I stick up for him all the time. He's the executive director of MUFON. He has inherited a can of worms. He's doing the best he can, and I really got to give him kudos for bringing in Andy Bashago, Corey Goode, and all the people that are never been at a MUFON symposium in their life before, or never invited, because their stories were so far out there that no other director would even take the chance. So I got to give him credit for that. And what it really did, and I told Jan this at the very end of the conference, I said, what you've done is you've polarized the community. And he goes, well, I wasn't really trying to polarize them. I was trying to get them to start thinking about the different facets of it. And I said, I get that, but what you've really done is you've quite polarized them. And I said, it may be a good thing, because what's going to happen is people are going to start saying, do I want proof or do I want fantasy? It's going to really draw the line between who's given us proof. It's kind of like taking us back to the 50s and 60s and 70s, like I want my proof, or do I want to go with this thing that says time and space don't matter and consciousness is the key, and it's all what, the aliens are doing to us in our consciousness, And that's okay. I have no problem with it. I thought it was a brilliant move, actually, because you can have both feelings about it, like I do. I want the proof, but I really embrace the consciousness aspect of it. So I thought it was pretty cool. But the problem I had was when Corey Goode got up on stage and started talking. Now, I'm going to preface this with everybody that knows me on did he speak Sunday? I think it was Sunday that he spoke. He spoke at 10:30 in the morning. And everybody that knows me begged me to stay home and watch it from my friend's house. And I said, why? And they said, because we don't trust you. I said, what do you mean you don't trust me? And this is all my best friends, right? And people in MUFON that are higher up. I mean, they're like watching me like a hawk because they're afraid I'm going to do something really outlandish. And, I have been known to do something outlandish here and there. And so they kind of begged me to stay home and watch it on the live stream, which I had access to. And so I did. And they, you know what? They were absolutely right. If I had been there, I probably would have blown a gasket about halfway through his presentation, ran up to the stage, knocking cameras over as I went, and yelling at him and grabbing the microphone and citing everybody that I heard him steal a story from, right down the line. Because I'm not an idiot, and I remember things. And it really got me going when I heard him say, and then there's this that happened, and this that happened, and this that happened, and this that happened. Not once saying, this is my experience, and if you don't want to believe it, that's fine, but this is what I experienced. He never once said that. He said, this is what people have said, this is what people have said, and he stole everybody in ufology that's been out there since 1965, stole every one of their stories and put them up there like they're facts. And, I get that most of these are facts and half of them aren't and whatever, I don't care. But for him to get up there and steal everybody else's stuff and act like it's his and that he's the great Messiah, bringing it all together, put me into a tizzy. I mean, I was absolutely, I'm lucky I didn't get a ticket driving back to the hotel right at the end of his speech. I was so angry. Thank God I had a 10-minute drive because I calmed down by the time I got there. Thank God. And I was, at that point, I just said, what am I going to do? At this point, what do you do? I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start walking around the room and I'm going to start polling people as to how they felt about his presentation. And honest to God, folks, I thought I was the only one thinking the way I was thinking. Every old timer in the room was livid. They were very angry because they remembered all these stories and they remembered it every time he said something. They're so-and-so, or that belongs to so-and-so, and he even blatantly stole stuff from Niara Isley, which was just really just really got me going because Niara has been abused for so long. And again, another woman abused in the UFO community and totally trashed and the whole bit. And now he's up there embracing her story as if it's his own. Oh, God. Anyhow, everybody was upset. And I guess the kicker for me was when he said, we all just need to get along. I mean, he didn't say it like that. He basically said, it's time that with ufology, we all start working together, blah, 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 blah. Basically, it's the old, why can't we all just get along routine? And then he had the absolute nerve that made me, this is the part where I was insane when I got in the car, to say, I'm putting on conferences that are going to change the world of ufology. And I thought, where were you 30 years ago? Where were you when Bob Brown put on the first International UFO Congress 25 years ago? Where were you when all this was going on back then? You were nobody. You were not even born. And you have the nerve to stand up here after Adamski and all those guys did it in the 50s to tell us that you're the coming of God Christ in the UFO community and you're going to bring us all together. Well, I'm sorry, you're not. And God, okay. So that's how I feel about that. Having said that, His presentation was okay. He did sit in a chair again. He had the same look on his face the whole dang time, like he's a mind control victim, like I've been saying all along. He's a contactee mind control victim, psyops operative. That is my absolute opinion. After seeing this one, I just, I'm like, how people can't see this. I am absolutely incensed about why people can't see this. It's making me nuts. Okay, so that's number one. And the second part was he had some pretty pictures up on a screen. Gee, that's nice. What happened to the secret space program craft that we all saw with an F-15 chasing it over giant rock at less than 200 feet above our heads, and we've got videotape to prove it, that we actually 62 people saw a secret space program craft. Why was that not at the MUFON meeting? Okay, I went up to Jan. Oh, no, I didn't go up to Jan. It was 2 weeks before the conference. And I called him one afternoon and I said, hey, look, why don't you open with Melinda talking on stage for 5 minutes, showing the video of this craft and this jet escorting it. It wasn't chasing, it was escorting the secret space program craft. And have her up there on stage with me and Aaron and Tana and Misha and everybody else that was out at Giant Rock in the front row. Just stand up and say, I am an eyewitness to this, folks. It was absolutely true and real. We all saw it together. Why didn't that happen? I am nuts over why that didn't happen. That is the absolute truth. It was there. It was solved. It was real. 62 people experienced it. We got it on videotape, and they have a whole conference around the secret space program, and they can't put her up on stage for 5 minutes to open the conference with that footage to prove that it does exist. Really? That made me nuts. And then I got to the conference and I said, Jan, why isn't Melinda up on stage with that footage? We'll pull it together for you in 5 minutes. He goes, oh, well, I don't know much about it. Did it get investigated? It's another case of women in the community not being ignored, and 30 years of research under their belt, doing all kinds of stuff, and they're totally ignored. I'm sorry. I'm really upset right now. I shouldn't be talking about this on the radio show, but I am really upset, you guys. It's not just MUFON. It's the whole UFO community. They do not give a little tiny mouse butt about us women in the community that have been out here in the trenches for them, reporting to them everything we do, everything we see, everything we can contribute, and we are the contributors. You look at it, most of the guys out there, I mean, I love them all, don't get me wrong. I love John Mack. I love, the list goes on and on of the amazing men in the community. But, they all say, if it wasn't for my wife letting me do this, I wouldn't be able to do it. If it wasn't for this person, I wouldn't be able to do this. They always get help from us, and we're always out here. We've always got their back. But it seems that these conferences and these conference producers never have ours. They will let people like David Wilcock and Corey Good and all these people get up and speak when there are 50 million, not 50 million. Okay, I know 50 women easily in the UFO community that have the most extraordinary stories and the most amazing things happen to them, and they won't speak anywhere because they say they're treated like dirt. And they said, why would I want to go do that to myself? And that's why at my conferences I try to have 50% women, 50% men speaking, and they're all treated equally. Nobody gets paid more than the other. Nobody gets paid anything. But the point is, they're all treated equally. I do not play favorites with people that I think have a bigger name and get paid bigger bucks. These poor women that contact in the desert are lucky to get a table and a sunshade. Seriously. Oh, dear God. Okay, I'm trying to keep my composure. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about that tonight. I think I better leave it at that because I'm so upset, you guys. I can't begin to even tell you. I just feel bad. Today I got a phone call from PBS television out of Chicago, and they need my help pulling together a conspiracy TV show. And I'm never asked to be on these things, and I don't really care. I don't want to be on them. But what I do, and I don't think a lot of you know this, and I very seldom talk about it, is over the years, what I have done is I have pulled together more people for more TV shows, more movies, more stuff than you guys can shake a stick at. If you only knew how many people called me a month, I probably get firecracker. Well, I'm not going to go into all the different companies, but I have all these companies that call me and say, "Hey, do you know somebody who does blah blah blah?" And I go, "Yeah." And then we sit and chat, and we develop some things for them and help them so they can find the right people for what they need. By the time I'm done, I have just now put 16 people on TV. And I've never been thanked for it, never gotten a penny for it, never done anything. And this is the kind of stuff that I know that there are at least 5 to 10 other women out there like myself that do this. And most of the people we end up promoting are men, which is fine because they happen to be the experts in the field. This happens to be under conspiracy, so they were JFK people. And sadly, one of our JFK people has died today, and that is Jim Marrs. If you didn't know about it, he did pass early this morning. So we're going to talk about that a little bit with our guest here in a few minutes. But I just wanted to say, I do everything I can to help out the community. I've given my heart, my soul, my money, and you can't, and nobody will have me on a stage. And I think the reason they will not let me speak at these conferences is because I am getting down to the nitty gritty and telling them the truth. The truth is this, folks. You've got to use discernment. And you've got to look at everything from both sides of the fence. You can't just sit up there and say, the blue avians came and got me, and this is what's going to happen, and I went 20 years and back. You need to look at it from all angles. And that's why I think they're afraid, because they know that I'm going to tell them that probably a good portion of these people are mind controlled, that probably a good portion are contactees. And if they are contactees, who's controlling them during the contact? That's very important to know. And then the people that are having recall, why are they having the recall? I want to know why they can remember stuff and other people can't. And if what they're remembering is actually the truth. Okay? So, there's a lot of, people I tell them what I want to talk about and they just go, "Oh, that was interesting. Well, we don't know who you are, so I'm sorry, you can't speak at our conference." I actually had friends ask people to let me speak at their conferences over the last year, and those people said, "Well, I'm sorry, but we don't know who you are, and we don't particularly like the topic, so you're not going to speak for us." And I get it. I totally get it. I don't have a book out about it. I totally get it, but it's disappointing that no one wants to hear the truth, or the truth as I see it. And I think I'm a pretty good realist about it. So you think they'd be happy to have somebody out there saying, "Hey, look, it isn't all just, aliens and flying saucers. It could be more than that, folks. You might want to look at it, So, okay. I'm done. I'm done ranting. I'm feeling much better now. You guys always make me feel so good when I get done with my little rants. So my guest tonight is Byron Belitsos. And did I say that right, Byron?
You got it this time.
I did. Belitsos. I got it. Yay. Oh, good. Only took me five different radio shows to get it right. What can I say? So, dear, what we wanted to talk about tonight, we got a whole bunch of things to talk about with Urantia Book, aliens, UFOs, what they've got to do with Urantia, the whole bit. But what I'd like to talk about first, before we get started, is about Jim Marrs. Now, I just found out when we were getting started for the show that he's a good friend of yours, or was a good friend of yours. Yes,
Jim and I were really, really close because I published his 9/11 book. I don't know if you know that, Lorien.
I didn't know that.
Because it was a very kind of anomalous situation, because he was about to put this book out in 2003 with HarperCollins, and he was pretty well-known author to the big agents, and so he got a huge advance, over a 6-figure advance. And it being Jim Marrs, he went in there and he absolutely cleaned up that story. He's really the first all-around journalist to get into the story that we now know that it was an inside job. He's an intrepid interviewer, as we know from his JFK books and other books. And he just nailed this thing. Now, when he completed it, it was accepted by the chief editor there and went upstairs, and they quashed it.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes, indeed. And so, they said, keep the advance. It was $125,000. And just we don't want to do it. We can't do it. It's too much. and they sent him away. And he circulated, and he found me. And at that time, I was, I had a pretty good staff and pretty good publishing operation, and I picked it up. I was, really way unknown compared to, anything on the East Coast, but we had the right people in place, and I got some funding from people. A lot of people that knew of Jim came forward with enough funding to really do it big. So Jim and I went on this adventure with this book kind of early on. There weren't very many other spokespeople at his level at that time, 2003, 2004.
Right.
And I'd circulated with him. I traveled with him to conferences, and I even put on a conference and made him the keynote. It was one in our neighborhood here, Lorien, 2003 or 4. I guess you didn't know about it. But
what was the name of it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was called 9/11 Convergence.
Oh, I did know about it. I couldn't make it. I'd already had plans it was on a Saturday afternoon, wasn't it?
It was 2 days. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. No, maybe it was an all day. But it was many speakers. But Jim was the keynote.
Yeah. Well, didn't you have the 9/11 truthers and didn't you have like Change? We Are Change and some of the other guys there. I'm trying to remember this. It was so long ago.
It was actually before the We Are Change people. Actually, it was.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, I did hear about it, but I was just so I had so many things going on back then. I actually was working full time then, so it was crazy. Yeah, but anyhow.
But Jim also, but he spoke also at the historic conference that Carol Brûlé put on. I don't know if you were at that one.
Oh no, I was not. Now, where was that one?
That was in San Francisco. Around the same time, just prior.
No, I did not know anything about that one. Now, I'd heard of the other one, but I did not know about that one. So very interesting.
Really the most important conference of that era that really brought everybody together for the first time, face-to-face, seeing everybody. And a lot of people showed up, and Jim gave a major speech there because Jim, was the only really, highly trained journalist in those days. There were one or two other ones, but Jim got the story in journalistic detail, and that was a big deal there. And around that time is when we had printed his book, so it got out to that audience. Then we had the conference here, and then I got very active in the movement, even though I was just a publisher, but I was traveling with him, and I emceed the 2006 major 9/11 conference in Chicago, where he spoke also.
Cool.
He and I have just tracked each other. He spoke at the 2009 conference on deep politics in Santa Cruz. Were you at that?
No, I was not, but I did hear about it. Wasn't our guy who's passed on now in the Santa Cruz radio network, Dr. Monteith, wasn't he part of that one?
He was not. He should have been, but he was not.
Stan Monteith. I thought he put that one on. Maybe I see. There's so many, my dear, that I probably go to 50 a year now. Yeah. I mean, not 50, but at least 30 I can think of. And I'm telling you, I can't remember them all anymore. It's gotten insane. Do you remember all the conspiracy cons? I mean, I think they were all speaking there at some point too, right?
Yeah. So Jim was speaking at those, and he was everywhere, and he didn't turn down, he would just show up because he was a public servant.
I know. That's what I loved about him. He used to say, I'd call him and say, I don't have any money, Jim. I can barely afford to get you out here. I can barely afford to do this or that. Or will you come down to JFK this year in Dallas or, whatever. And he'd be like, will you put up my assistant for me in a separate room? And I go, yep. He'd go, okay, done deal. He was so cool about that. I just loved it. So
all the authors I've worked with, and I've worked with over 40 of them, he was my favorite. He was always jolly, always joking, always telling great stories. He would get, he'd get in a room and everyone just gather around, and Jim would just wow us with what he knew and with his stories. But more than anything else, he was very personally involved and loving you and caring about you at any turn, whatever was going on. I can't speak highly enough, and
Well, we have to take a break. So when we get back, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you some stories about Jim, about he and I together over the last few years. And then if you've got any fun stories about him, we'll talk. MUFON Radio Show. I am your host, Lorien Fenton, and I am really happy to have Byron Belitsos. I'm so close. I know I'm so close. Belitsos with me here tonight, and he is. You're not the author of anything that I know of, are you? Oh no, you are. Your book is right here in front of me on my desk. What an idiot I am. So tell everybody about your books. I know there's two, right? Is it two?
Well, I've co-authored 6 books, but this is the first one that I authored on my own. I tend to work with authors who need an editor, and they often say, "Well, look, why don't you go co-author with me?" And because I'm a fast writer and I'm highly trained editor, so I have done a lot of that. But this one, I just got to a point where
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I wanted to make a statement about this controversial topic that nobody else is coming forward to do. And I'm kind of like you, Lori, and I'm a gadfly, and I try to bring in new topics that nobody else will. So I just would finally just step out and do this book. And the timing was not as bad as I thought, because people are receiving it very well, because there's, because of the global crisis and the crisis in the United States, people are interested in things that are brand new, unheard of, that have universal import. And I think the Urantia book does, and I think it is kind of designed for the time that we're in. So yeah, I just put this book out a couple months ago.
Your Evolving Soul, the Cosmic Spirituality of the Urantia Revelation. There we go. I just found it under my Mae Brussels, Fascism in America and in the Eye of History by William Matson Law. Nothing like having a diverse desk here, I got to tell you. So anyhow, first of all, let's just tell people how they can get to your website, your book, or whatever it is that you're doing, or for the show. And then let's get back to Jim Mars, and then we'll get back to your books. Okay?
Yeah, so just anywhere books are sold, I've got distribution in all bookstores and Amazon. So just look for Your Evolving Soul. My website is evolving-souls.org to get background on the book and press clips and some of the video that I've done. It's on evolving-souls.org. And so just came back from book tour in the Denver Boulder area. And they had a major international conference of the Urantia book there, and people, don't know about such things because it's so esoteric. But there's actually a big following in Europe and Latin America. So there were a lot of people from a lot of countries at this major conference in Denver, where I also just spoke.
Wow, that's really cool. You told me about that conference, and I totally forgot about it. I'm so bad. You know why I forgot about it? Because I was having such an experience in Las Vegas with this MUFON symposium. It kind of washed everything out of my brain. I kind of got just overtaken by the moment, I think. So how did the conference go?
They have a very good leadership, I think, and if you spend much of your life with the Urantia Revelation, it changes you and turns you into like Jim Mars, you become a public servant, and that's what it teaches, is service to others. And I just found a lot of very loving people there, and I always go to their events, and I usually put on a workshop. And this time was unusual because people from somewhat outside that community were invited into the community to speak about their work. And in particular, Barbara Marks Hubbard gave a keynote.
Yeah.
Over many years, I've been talking to her, really 20 years, about the Urantia book, when she was a neighbor of mine here in Marin County. And since then, and I worked with her on one of her books, got to be pretty close. But it was never the case that she was all that interested in the Urantia Revelation. But lately, she's changed. It's part of the trend, I think, that she wanted to look at my manuscript for this book and help me and coached me with it a little bit. And then she read it thoroughly and wanted to be at that conference. So she gave a keynote that was remarkable because she said to the group that her work, which is very broad and visionary, she said her work is really a subset of what the vision of the Urantia book is.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. That's very cool.
And that was neat. That she would say such a thing in a big public space is a pretty big breakthrough. Yeah.
It is, because I told you, I never did tackle the Urantia book because it's just so voluminous, and I just don't have the time anymore to sit and read like I used to. I mean, before the internet, I was reading, 6 books a week, 5 to 6 books at least, and my problem now is I'm working way too much, and I'm on the internet all the time working there as well. So, when do you have find time to sit and read? It's pretty difficult. And so when your book came out, I'm like, oh yeah, it's right here on my desk. I will get to reading it one of these days because I'm actually starting to take a little more time to read again, which is wonderful. That's a present for myself this year, is that I'm actually reading again. So, yeah, and yours is one of the 3 I'm reading. So there you go. It's just at the bottom right now, so I'll eventually get to it. But yeah, it's very interesting to me, the whole Urantia story. So let's take a few more minutes, though, before we get into it and the book itself, to talk a little bit more about Jim Mars. And do you have any stories about anything funny he ever did with you, or interesting, or just quirky, or just something cool about Jim that you know about that maybe other people don't know?
Jim was wide-ranging in his interests, and he is, I think he's the first person ever to, on the topic of the Urantia book, for example, and in the last maybe 10 pages of the Alien Agenda. His great book, The Alien Agenda, one of the best books on that in the field.
It is.
Section is, I was shocked to see that he did a comparison of the Urantia book prehistory story with the Sitchin prehistory story.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. You're right, he did.
And he was way ahead of his time on that. Nobody has done it since then, other than people like me who are advocates of the Urantia book anyway. Jim, this was how I got to understand Jim. Jim was fearless, and he's a great researcher, and he's a great writer, and he's a great speaker. He was a great speaker. And so in this case, because of his vast research, he saw this issue, which is a very big issue, in my humble opinion, in our community, that the Sitchin story has become the predominant story of our prehistory, whereas the Urantia story has much more coherence and very strong evidence, and it is almost totally unknown. But Jim did see that, and he did say, look, this is a big mystery. Which of these guys is right? They're both strong sources, and we need to, work this out. And he did go on to work it out, but left that to other people like myself. So that's a story. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to. It was every time I saw Jim at these conferences, there were, conferences on conspiracies or UFOs or things of that nature. They tend to be sometimes grim, or there's controversy, or there's, people getting into ego conflicts. But every time I would see Jim, he would be laughing. He would be telling stories to people. And I just, any possible time, I would just be with him because he would just keep me happy. So
absolutely.
Think of particular stories. Let me think. I mean, one time he told me that his family was not particularly supportive of his work. I didn't realize that. I don't know if you did, Lorien.
Yeah, we've had our moments about that. Yeah.
His wife and his kids they never really understood him in this regard, which is a little shocking to me because, he was moving all over the country speaking and making a big impact, so he didn't have that much support at home for his work. Yeah, so I was sad to know that about Jim because he was giving us so much, but not getting support, sufficient support at home, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I think, early on, I think he was having a lot more issues with it. But I know in the last few years, his wife actually was coming to one of the JFK conferences with him to be with us. She couldn't make it that year because something happened or whatever, but she was planning on driving with him over there. So there were, I think as he got older and she got older, I think she's starting to kind of get it, which was very cool. I just loved her for kind of finally, getting on his side, on the bandwagon, as they say. So I think things were mellowing in that area. Yeah, the kids will never understand, just like my nieces and nephews and my sisters. And, nobody will ever understand what I do. They have no idea what I do. I don't even know what I do. Right? At least Jim was a journalist and an author and a speaker. At least he had some titles. I'm a nobody out there, and I do all kinds of stuff every day, as you know. And you're like that too. You're kind of like me. You're always in the background, putting people together and doing things, and talking about what we could do to change things, or how it can be different, or what kind of conference can we put on that will enlighten people. I mean, we're never sitting here on our thumbs twiddling them, I can tell you that, or on our hands doing nothing. That's for sure. I
think we're similar that way. We're producers. We're not out front typically, and I am a little bit uncomfortable being out front with my own book, to tell you the truth. It's not my usual role. But getting back to Jim, Jim was designed for this work.
Yes.
He started out, I think that he was in military intelligence.
Yep.
So he learned sort of to be a detective, you might say, and was a straight guy. He went into the military. He served the country. I guess the thing about Jim is that he was a patriot. I mean, all the time. He was always tuned into what was best for this country. And when I first met him and published that book, I was taken aback because I didn't realize that there was an alt-right in this country.
You got it. That's exactly it. That's Jim.
That's how I learned about it because, I was going to promote his book to the left in the United States, and what turned out is, Jim, let me try that, but he said, look, the following is actually the alt-right, and those are my people. And I said, but Jim, this is Northern California. I mean, I'm not going to be able to, put this to that audience. He says, well, I'll show you, who they are and who the radio hosts are, and you just go ahead and pitch them. And so for the first time, I was meeting people like Stan Montieth.
Yeah. Loved him.
None of these, I didn't know these people were out there. I mean, I'd heard this and that, but there they were, and I realized there's this huge underground of people who've come above ground, and since then, that are tuned into ufology, turned into conspiracy, all the stuff that the left thinks, used to think that it had the handle on what was wrong with this country. But, Jim taught me and many of us that there's this other point of view, and they're just as angry as the left.
It's so true. I don't know where I stand in any of this, but Jim always made me laugh about it because I'm going to try to get this picture up there to everybody. I don't know if anybody's seen it on Facebook, not to cut you off or anything, but the last conference I was at with Jim, and where do I start? Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning with Jim, just quickly, and I'm going to go through this very quickly, folks. I met Jim in 2010 or 11. I can't remember where I met him. That's the worst part about the whole thing. I'm racking my brains all day trying to figure it out. I can't remember. I know that in 12, I was with him at a JFK thing somewhere. I know that in 13 and 14 I was too. I know that by 14 he and I were crossing over together into ufology and the JFK scene, and it was so funny. It was at Conscious Life Expo 2014. I walked up to him and he grabs me, gives me a big hug and says, "How are you doing?" I said, "You old coot, the weirdest part about you and me?" And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "You and I are like alien 9/11 JFK truthers, and we go to all three rings of the circus and nobody else is there but you and I." And he started laughing. He thought that was hysterical because I just ran into him somewhere else, and then I ran into him a couple months later, contacted in the desert, and then it was like everywhere we went, there was just the two of us, and it was like everybody else fell away until we got back to the next alien thing or JFK thing or 9/11 truth thing or whatever. So he had a great time with that. He thought it was hysterical.
Oh, I got to tell you another story about Jim that is. I can't even believe it's come to mind. Just some time ago, I published the first of the series of books by Philip Kropf about his alien abduction contact. Right, so because of getting around to UFO conferences with that was 2002, 3, 4, 5, and I got a note from Gordon Novell.
Okay.
way back, and it was like 2004 or something, and I never heard of Gordon Novell. And Gordon said in this email, "I need to talk to your author because I want him to ask the ETs that he had been abducted some questions because we want to reverse engineer a UFO craft, and we have some technical questions to ask."
That's funny.
Because, he had the impression that Phil Kropf was able to, sort of address them telepathically. Well, he was that's interesting you brought that up, and I'm not trying to sideswipe our conversation here, but that's one of the premises of my new book, Extraordinary Contact, is the fact that it's time for us to start really trying to communicate with them and bringing back the information on a cognitive, level. So anyhow, but go ahead. I think that's interesting that Gordon Novell was actually asking you this way back then, 15 years ago, whatever. Yeah, all those years ago. So I didn't know who he was, and I said, "Look, Phil Kropf can't do that at will. I mean, he doesn't know when they're going to come to him, and he doesn't have telepathic contact. So sorry about that, but who are you?" And he goes, "Well, I'm part of this group that's trying to reverse engineer a UFO." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" Back then I didn't realize what that was all about at all. So he said, "Look, I know you're a publisher and you have an interest in, it turns out that I also have a book about this, a manuscript." And I said, "Okay, send me the manuscript." So he sends me this thing. It was like 900 pages.
Jesus. Okay.
Pretty good. He was prolific, and he had a lot of great detail in this book about the abduction situation, but more on the phenomenon of the shooting down of craft and the fact that we had already reverse engineered it at Area 51 or somewhere, and that he had evidence of that, and that not only that, but he got a group of people to smuggle out. Well, this is how I first met McCandlish.
Exactly. I was just going to say, now this leads us all to Mark, right?
Yeah, led to McCandlish, but it led to Jim Mars because...
now that's interesting. I didn't know Jim was part of that group back then. Yeah,
because Gordon Novell, he kind of worshipped Jim as an American hero and he found out that I knew Jim, and he said, look, we need to get Jim in on this. And I said, well, okay. What do you suggest? He said, well, the book that I've written, I'd like to have him as a co-author on the book with me, because I'm not a writer, but I have a lot of him. So I said, that's a cool idea. Let's put that together. So we got to Jim, and it turns out that we flew to Las Vegas to meet Novell and a few of his colleagues, and he wanted to meet Jim and get Jim on board to do this book with him, which I would publish, which was unwieldy. It was very long, but had great information that he had spent really like his adult life doing this background research.
That's true. I mean, you could say, I don't know if very many people know who Gordon Novell is. He was quite a larger-than-life character back in the early 2000s of the UFO community. He really wanted to build a spaceship. And it did, I never met him. I've only seen a couple of pictures of him way back, and I really don't know much about the man, but he was seriously larger than life, right? I mean, this guy lived like a, I don't know. I mean, from what I heard, he was just, when you met him, you knew you'd met Gordon Novell, right?
Nothing like Novell. And the story I want to tell is the story of how Novell and Jim Mars in the same room at the same time. There's just you've never seen anything like it. Two very larger than life American heroes who were great raconteurs, great storytellers, because Novell was notorious for telling exaggerated stories. That were full of a lot of truth at the same time, but he dramatically exaggerated these things for humorous effect, and so to entertain you, and you knew there was a lot of truth in it. But he was overstating it. But he got you. He pulled everybody in. So one point, so he said, "Look, you and Jim, you guys got to make this thing work. I want you to get this manuscript and start writing it, and I'm going to get you the funds for that." We would have needed a lot of funds to get Jim Morris to work on this huge, unwieldy manuscript, and he never to get the money. But the way that the last thing that probably happened with this is he wasn't coming up with the money. But we became very close friends with him, and we went to see him at Laughlin. I think Jim Morris was speaking, and I went. And we met off-site to talk about how we're going to do this because we don't have any money. And the two of them just went on and told the funniest stories. And at one point, they both say, well, what are we going to do about the First Amendment? We can't carry, we should all have guns, right? And then, but Jim goes, yes, but I always carry a switchblade. And I'll go, I too carry a switchblade. And they both pulled out their switchblades, and they both had big ones. I mean, they were like something that
you're killing me.
In this restaurant in Laughlin, and I'm just sitting there, just like little fly on the wall, and they're like showing off who had the biggest switchblade.
Oh, jeez! My God!
Laughed about that for weeks. It was just a great scene that I will never forget. And but that's what they were like, and they were equivalent. But Novell was more. Further out than anyone I've ever met, because he at the end of this process, he did convene engineers, scientists, software people, hardware people in a big meeting in Los Angeles, and he had Mars and I come because we were to be the scribes and the journalists for this meeting. And they never. Oh my God! Any money? They never got the money.
They never got the money. I know they never did.
And McCandlish never came around much, but he was in that circle, and they just. I think that and he we believed that Novell was under surveillance.
Yeah, I think he was too. I also think he was a targeted individual before targeted individuals were known. I think they
was a TI
with them. Yeah,
he had all sorts of energetic attacks on him all the time. so much so that you couldn't even believe it. He had people show up at his door with guns, you know. I mean, he was going to do this project, come hell or high water, you know, and then he finally, he died under suspicious circumstances. But his son, you know, insisted that you know, they didn't think it was foul play. But, you know, Jim and I really mourned over that because, we were ready to do the book, and he just never got it together. You know, he never really, you know, thought that the manuscript was quite right. He wanted to improve it, and then he wanted to get the money, and he wanted to pay Jim a huge advance. And so that's the. But anyway, the story of the two with the switchblades is unforgettable.
That is cute, I gotta say. So we have to take our next break here pretty quick. So I just want to say there is a couple more episodes with Jim that I'm going to save for another day, another time. But one it involves lots of JB and clog dancing with Jim, and the other one involves him. It's up on Facebook everywhere. It's where Jim tricked me into kissing him on the lips, but all you guys see is me kissing him on the cheek. So it's got a funny story around it. It was a JFK event last year, and I walked up to him and I said, "Oh, I want a picture with you. I've never had a picture with you in all the years." And so he did it, and he goes, "Well, now kiss me right here on the cheek." And I go, "Okay." So I started to pucker up and go to kiss him, and he whips his head around and smacks a big one on me. And I said, "You dirty dog." I said, "Wait till your wife gets a hold of that picture." And he started laughing, and then I did kiss him on the cheek. And that's what you see up on Facebook is me and him in a big laugh because I said I was going to tattle to his wife. So, and he was just laughing. He thought that was so funny. So anyhow, so there you go. Enough Jim stories for the night, folks. We're going to come back with Byron Belitsos, and we're going to talk about his book, Your Evolving Soul, when we come right back. So stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to the California MUFON Radio Show. I'm your host, Lorien Fenton. We're here tonight with Byron Belitsos, and we're talking about his book, Your Evolving Soul, but we've also been talking quite a bit about Jim Marrs. He passed today, and, you know, all I can say is that I've had some really good experiences with Jim, and I know he's up there. He's at the Texas bar in the sky, and he's having a great time because he truly was a Texan. There was nothing about Jim Marrs that didn't reek Texas.
That's right.
You know what I mean, Byron? It's just like, yeah, everywhere he went, he had his drawl, he had his hat, he had his boots, you know, and his belts, and it's just great stuff. So anyhow. He'll be he's going to be really missed. Really missed.
More and more we're going to miss him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, you know, and this goes back to the problem. And, you know, it's even part of your book in a weird way. I'm getting to it. You know, this last conference I went to, I was so angry and I felt so betrayed. I think the bottom line was I felt betrayed. I felt like the community is starting to not really remember anything and that they're letting the media guide their existence. And that's really scary to me. And I know that the Urantia book has messages for people to live by. Yeah. And I'm starting to think that maybe we should just get back to square one like we did back in the 50s with Adamski and all that gang. And try to live by one, you know, golden rule, and that is, you know, that there are space brothers, and we need to stop all this insanity in between. You know, I'm discouraged. You know.
Well, I think, you know, widening the perspective with something like the Urantia book is what you need in a time when of all so much conflict and so much confusion. You know, that to know it's so refreshing that there is off-planet, not just extraterrestrials, but higher beings, angelics.
Oh, exactly, angelics. I was just going to say, you know, my contact is with angels. I've never, not once in my entire existence, have said that my aliens aren't angelic or higher dimensional beings, and those are the beings that brought us the Urantia book. Am I correct?
That is correct. There's a group of about 30 of them that are the authors of these papers, and there's, we call them papers, they're chapters, but they're big chapters, and there's 196 chapters.
Jeez.
And they actually have names associated with them, which are celestial beings for most of them, but some of them do not have a name, an actual name, but a category of being. It's a type of being, like a type of archangel that will be the author of a paper about archangels, and they won't have a name. But often they have names, such as Macaventa Melchizedek, and we've all heard about Melchizedek and the order of Melchizedek, but they actually give you the first name of this person named Melchizedek in the Bible. So you actually know who these celestial authors' names are in many cases. And so that's the refreshing thing about this, is that they care enough not just to inspire us and, kind of fly around like angels do, but to actually communicate with us in a huge textbook.
Contact and have these amazing visions and downloads and experiences, or have children on other planets, or whatever it is that we're doing right now with these different types of beings, need to start getting that communication brought to us, and it needs to be in a more open flowing type of communication. Now, I love the Urantia book. I think it's great that they wrote it all down. But what's got to happen next is there's got to be sightings like, Medjugorje or, places like that where people are getting contact with a being that everybody's seen, and they're all getting some kind of contact at the same time. And that we're able to take that back into our life with us, not necessarily the spaceships all landing, because, if it's a spaceship, that's great, but, we can see angels.
Okay, keep your...
Can see, Christ or, whatever. And, why not have them give us a little more oomph instead of just being back in the dark age? I won't say the dark ages, but what year was the sighting in Portugal with the kids? What year was that?
That was 1915, 16, 17, around that time, because it was around World War I, when they saw.
Oh, that's right. That's absolutely right. Now, do we have any pictures of that? Because I've been wondering lately if, I think I saw some pictures of what they thought was, they were seeing the Virgin Mary, but to me it was just a big glowing orb and looked like a typical alien spacecraft that we have now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you know that there's a pretty good book on that actually Andy Bashago was the editor for, and I helped them edit this book that was translated from Portuguese.
Wow.
The fact that those were extraterrestrials, not angels, that appeared there. It was very well done and well written and evidenced account of, no, this was not angelic, it was extraterrestrial, because here are witnesses that we have in archives that state that they saw a ship, and the Catholics interpreted that as angelic sighting, and it's not really the case. And so, but to your larger point, which is, why don't they show themselves?
Yeah, we need this now.
Yeah, not just channeling things is nice, but why don't we? I mean, what I generally feel and what I know from the Urantia teaching is, they're not even permitted to do that unless there's a situation, an extraordinary situation, because it would upset the evolution of the planet too much to do a divine intervention that is so stark that it would shortcut people's faith process, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. So what they're worried about is our spirituality in a way.
I mean, that's what they're here for anyway, but it's sort of like the prime imperative in Star Trek is that you don't want to intervene in another planetary culture and change their own trajectory. It's not fair to them, and they haven't necessarily earned it.
Yeah.
So it's unearned. But, however, that said, there are times when it is earned. In other words, the population has done everything they possibly can to reform their institutions and improve, and they just get to a point where they just cannot do it because there's too much sort of evil opposition. And that's what the Urantia Book says is the case with Christ coming here, that they had to do a divine intervention at that time to move, and that was a very massive intervention to have an incarnation of a deity. But those are done very, very carefully, judiciously, in such a way that it doesn't. It will disrupt evolution, but it's something that the people earned. And you look at the Roman times. The timing of this was people were desperate. They were really reaching out, and all those religions were stating this has got to be a time of revelation. This is the end time. Everybody thought this was the end of end of history, and then boom, the Messiah shows up and actually said, "Yeah, it's the end. That's the end of the age. I'm here." Wow. And so when it's time for what they call the termination of the age, then known as a dispensation in biblical terms. A dispensation is an age of history that has come to its flowering and fruition, and then the human effort can't get any further, and they've done their best, and that's when something will come in and change, and some kind of revelation will come. And it depends because there's normally it's not global. It's a revelation to a particular civilization.
Wow.
India had its own set of revelations, and so did Tibet, and so did China. They had Lao Tzu at the right time in their history, or other great teachers in these cultures that are they're really often supernatural. So the evolution is punctuated by revelation if it's well earned.
Very interesting. I think we're on the verge of having another big event like that. I really do, because I think that I hope and pray we have another event like that, because it will solve a lot of. It doesn't have to be the aliens landing in Washington for disclosure. But it needs to be more than 62 people watching an F-15 chasing a secret space program craft, obviously, for anybody to pay attention to it. And it needs to be something where we can prove to a very large amount of people all at the same time that this is real, and that something, and when I say that, it means it has to be something big enough that the media cannot ignore it. That's our biggest hurdle here. And I keep telling people that what they don't understand is the media will quash, change, ridicule, obfuscate. I mean, they're going to change everything we say if there's 50 people. If you have 7,000 people, if you have 10,000 people, if you have 50,000 people having an experience together, it's much harder to do it. But then I hear myself saying that, and then I go, oh my God, look what happened with 9/11. They were able to pull that off in a whole city of millions of people. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dreaming.
No, I think this is part of, human nature is we are designed by a deity. We have a creator that's transcendental creator, and it's like our parents, and we want our parent. We're the children. We're the sons and daughters of God, as the Urantia Book would put it. And we want our parents to love us and show love, so that we know we're loved. And they're very careful, though, because again, they want you to develop the imagination of their presence sufficiently that you're ready for their real presence. And the reason for the appeal to imagination that I make is that our faith is really a question of imagination. Faith is not like faith in a proposition, some dogma or some doctrine. Faith says, I don't have to have a demonstration hit me over the head like a baseball bat. I can imagine that I am loved. I can imagine that this is a friendly universe. I can imagine that these avatars like Krishna or Christ or others really did come here and teach us about love. And,
yes.
And if you can develop that faculty of what I call faith imagination, then you are growing spiritually in the most progressive way. And in fact, you grow more in this absence of the appearance of the higher beings than in their presence. And it sounds like a paradox.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, it does sound like a paradox, because you'd think you'd have to have one with it to grow the other, right? But I think you've got a good point.
And this is the point that you see in all the religions, really, is that the divine loves you and is your parent, but it wants you to grow up on your own, because you need to stand on your own 2 feet through your own efforts, and so it will give you lots of clues, and it will give you scriptures, but it will only rarely show up, in the sky, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
For that reason.
In other words, have faith.
Have faith, but move from faith to knowledge within you. It's the knowledge. Yeah. Gnosis is something within that's the real growth, and that's what my book is actually about. It's about the inner growth that we call the soul, or that the soul is a result of inner growth, and is not necessarily advanced by signs and wonders, as they say, as the Christians would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jesus warned about this, is that this generation is looking for a sign, and because they're faithless, they want to be shown what is really something that they need to show themselves in their inner life through their faith imagination. So not to belabor this, but I think it's important for our moment that we be patient and develop the ability to know they're present with us, caring about
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, that's why I tell my friends that are Catholic and Baptist and my born-again Christian friends and everybody out there, that we are not that different than they. Because they really get on my case about the aliens, and they say that I'm worshiping demons. And I'm like, no, now hold on a minute here. Where do you think your guys came from? If you believe in Christ, then obviously he had to come from some higher dimensional space, right? I go, my guys are equally as nice, and they're, they've never caused me a problem, and they've saved my life 1 million times. Not 1 million, but enough. And so, bottom line is, how do we know that my guys aren't a Christ too? How do we know it's not his brother?
It's sent by Christ, you might say. If you're a Christian, you would say the angels, are working under Christ's authority and being sent to you. And Lorien, I know you've had all kinds of angelic contact, and I think that is just what you have earned that, But those who don't have much faith and are not in service to humanity, like you, like Jim Mars, less is going to be given to them. But to those lots that has been given, much is expected. But the more you give, the more that the celestial world will come to you and show themselves. But the population doesn't necessarily merit that. The population may or may not be ready. However, the parent is not going to let the people perish in the end.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what's interesting is we get back into ufology here for a second, away from the book. There's the whole phenomena, as you know, where 10 people are standing there and 2 can see a spacecraft and the other 8 can't see nothing, right? So they're obviously not ready. They obviously do not have what it takes to see it, and that may be that their frequency is lower and that doesn't vibrate their optic nerve at the right frequency to see that they're there all the time, or they're there for that moment, or whatever the case may be. And maybe those people are the ones who have just the ability to understand that it's real. And maybe that's the key.
I think that's the key. I think the higher beings understand and know and often are omnisciently know who is ready and who is not ready, and they work under a kind of legislation on high, which says, again, there's a prime directive: do not intervene without sort of a collective decision in the heavens that the people have earned and are ready. And I think we now can say, yep, the planet has pretty much earned this. And I say that to myself. I say, we're really ready for this, and so why don't they show up? And then I remember, for example, I once had a guru long ago in the 70s.
Oh, cool. Which one?
Tibetan Buddhist teacher named Trungpa Rinpoche.
Oh, Rinpoche. Oh, I liked him. Yeah.
A fabulous, charismatic teacher. And the reason I bring that up is because they would have these huge events, right, where he was supposed to speak at 8 p.m. Okay, so there'd be, hundreds of people that would be there for the talk, and he would show up really late.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
70s and 80s, and I at first I was livid. I mean, how could such a great man, a famous man, show up 90 minutes late, and all these people? So what happened is, while we were waiting for him, the community got to know one another, and they self-organized themselves in those 90, even 2 hour, we get there like 10 o'clock. And
right.
By the time he got there, the anticipation, the energy, the faith, the love had become kind of ecstatic. And we found out he was doing this on purpose.
Sure. Smart man.
And I think that's what the Celestials do. They are right like 2 inches from us, and they're not showing themselves overtly, because they're enhancing our faith. They're giving us little signs here, little signs there, and we're building up our own momentum, our own self-organization, that we will do it ourselves with them hovering over us, overlighting us, and not short-circuiting our process. Because once a high being shows him or herself, it's kind of all over. It's a new era.
Well, true, because at that point you become the enlightened being with them as well, because you now are in communication with them on a telepathic or energetic level, and you have now ascended also. And that may be what everybody's, really hoping about, is that they talk about this ascension that's supposed to be happening. And they say that the big eclipse that's coming up is the big thing for the next ascension. And I'm like, okay, how many times have we heard that, Byron? I heard it in 2000, 2012. Now I'm hearing it again. It's like,
we are. Yes, we are.
Well, what do you think? Do you think there truly is an ascension process, and that we are going to be hitting it on the 21st of this month, and something's all going to shift for us? I mean, or do you think something's already happened and we have shifted?
Well, we are shifting, day by day, and incrementally shifting energetically on the planet. One curious thing about that eclipse is that for the Urantia people is that day is Christmas, according to the Urantia Book. It's the birth date of Christ. In the Urantia Book has historic details, which is rich with detail, and it states that he was born on August 21st. Okay.
Gosh, you know what? That's my birthday too.
No way. Really?
Seriously. Yeah, I was born on August 21st, 1957. Oh. I'm going to be 60 years old on the eclipse, and the eclipse is happening at the same time I was born.
That is so cool.
60 years ago. Yeah. It's really a trip.
That's totally auspicious. Well,
I know.
There's a lot of Urantia people that are running around going wild because not only is that eclipse on the birthday of Christ, but the second eclipse, which will be, 2022 or 2024?
Yes, 2020. I think it's 2022. I want to say it could be 2024, but I remember it's coming up in the 20s, early 20s. Yeah.
Within 10 years. And that day is the day of the historic resurrection of Christ.
Really?
Yeah, so it's kind of pretty odd, but I don't think it means anything particular. But there's a lot of people saying, well, maybe this is by design, that you're giving us a sign that this is the birthday of Christ, and maybe we should look for some kind of manifestation that day. But wow. I don't go with those kind of prophecies. They're because they don't mean that much personally to me when it's pegged to a date, and it's really people trying to short circuit this process of developing their inner life on their own with inspiration. This is divine inspiration, but not having to have signs in the sky, which really do short circuit that process. I'm not sure that miracles, it's sort of like winning the lottery. You win the lottery and you think, this is the greatest thing ever happened. But a lot of people that win lotteries don't grow up. They misspend their money. They don't use it.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. And I think you're absolutely right about that observation. It's like, if you end up putting this all out there as the answer, then you never really try to get to the truth yourself,
That's right.
And that's the real bottom line here.
And that's what the whole kind of the mission is that each individual finds this in their inner life, through their meditation, through their prayer, whatever you want to call that they are feeling the presence of the divine inside themselves because it's there. And that should, in theory at least, that is sufficient. You don't need to see it. And because we are by design able to have a cognition of the presence of spirit already, and that's what the scriptures are telling us in the first place.
Well, absolutely, and that's what the Urantia book is saying also, right?
That's really the whole import of the text, and that's my book is about that too. It's saying as you have these incremental perceptions of the presence of the divine, which can show up in terms of just a beautiful sunset, or somebody giving you a gift out of the blue, or just you making a discovery in science, for example. Any of these advances in your life are the presence of the divine in the most vivid possible way, which becomes part of you. And the way I put it, and this is following the Urantia book, is every important experience is saved. It's like hitting a save button inside. It's saved in and as your soul.
Wow. Okay. Now with that, we have to take our final break of the night. It's saved as your soul. Man, that is profound. Okay. We'll be right back, folks, and we'll discuss it's being saved as part of your experience, is being saved as part of your soul when we get back with Byron Belitsos, and we'll be right back. So hang in there. We'll be right back after these breaks. I guess that's what I'm supposed to say. Welcome back, everyone, to the California MUFON Radio Show. I am your host, Lorien Fenton, and I hope you guys have a chance to get over here to IRN and get on the website and get the app. MJ, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I can't find the app anymore on the new website, and maybe you could tell me where it is. And I keep telling people to get it, and then I go, where is it? So there we go. I need to know where that app is hiding because I know it's here somewhere. Anyhow, so I need you guys to go to IRN. I need you to get the app and download it onto your Android or iPhone or whatever it is you're using, your Moto or Mojo or whatever they call that phone, and do that. So let's see what we got. I'm still looking for it. Where is it, MJ? Well, MJ will tell me soon enough. I'll know. Maybe it's not there anymore. Oh, my God. It better be there. Oh, wait. We got more ways to listen. I see it, MJ.
Lorien.
There's an Yeah.
Just tell them to go to their app stores and download the app too, in the Android Google Play Store and the iTunes Store, App Store. They can download the app right from there too.
Oh, cool. And I did see it, MJ. I finally saw it says more ways to listen at the bottom of the page.
Okay.
There's a little Android guy. There's an Apple dude. There is, there's a Windows Media Player kind of looks like, or iTunes. There's, God, you guys, there's all kinds of places now.
Well,
oh, my God.
Lorien, we're on iHeartRadio right now, too, and we're on TuneIn Radio, Stitcher Radio. You can call and listen line, of course, 401-283-6700. And Jim Mars just logged in online again.
Oh, now that's so interesting. He said he's saying hi to us here tonight on the show.
Yes.
I think that's so cool.
That's my buddy, Jim.
I love it. Well, thanks for giving me that info, MJ, because I never knew where it was after the website changed. I've just been telling people to get it. So there you go. Many ways to listen, right, MJ?
Right.
Okay, great. And the other thing I want to remind you guys is that Late Night in the Midlands always replays my show. So does, they're going to be doing it over at, not Spaced Out Radio, but another network. They're affiliated with them. Gene Chip Tatum is also going to revive my shows and start playing them again on his network. And you know, there's a lot of people out there playing it, and I do really appreciate them all. I want to thank IRN, as usual, for being the spearhead of letting me get my voice out there to the world, because, you know, I'm not the voice everybody wants to hear, but I'm the voice you guys are stuck with on Wednesday nights. So there you go. And become a member of the Insiders Club if you'd like, and that'll support the network and keep me here and keep MJ, you know, and Joe and everybody else that helps out, Bob, and keep the network alive. And you can do that by going to, let's see where it is. Maybe MJ will have to help me with that too. I'm not sure. Members. You go to the members button, I think. There you go. You can get a membership level. You can go to the IRN Insiders Club. It's only $4.99 a month, you guys. And I really encourage you to do so, because at some point in the near future, I'm going to be videotaping some of my MUFON events, and I will give IRN some exclusive time with these events, and it will be only seen in the IRN Insiders Club. So I want you guys to know that. So there are, you know, hopefully I can start getting some things there for them to have some juicy content that you'll never see anywhere else. So there you go. So get down there to the membership button on the top of the page. It says members. You click on that. You can join the Insiders Club, or you can become an IRN fan club member for free. All right, so there you go. Those are my advertisements for the night. Okay, we're back with Byron Belitsos, and I want to say that his book, Your Evolving Soul, is on my desk. That means I'm going to read it. It's The Cosmic Spirituality of the Urantia Revelation. And Byron, you know, there's one thing we haven't talked about before we get to questions tonight, and that is really, what was the major inspiration that got you to write the book itself? What was the one thing that you said, oh my God, I've got to do this? Is it because of people like me who looked at you with that blank stare at all these conferences and said, I can't read the Urantia book, it's only 3 million pages long, you know? Was that it?
It kind of is, because that is indeed what has happened with friends, girlfriends, family. And, like, what does it really mean to you? Why are, you know, so I said, okay, look, I'm going to write this thing. So 20 years ago, I started this book.
Really? This is, oh, that's right. You told me that in the last interview, that it was like, took forever to get this book to happen.
It did. I was a little shy about it. I didn't think the timing was right either. And, you know, I was trying to make a living producing other people's books that I knew would be, you know, bigger sellers. And, for example, somebody like Jim Mars. And I didn't think there was an interest in this until the last couple of years. And so I accelerated, and then I just suddenly got this download that said, this is the time, get this thing done. And it really had to do not so much with the political crisis on the planet, but what I saw as a kind of spiritual springtime. That of a sort where you could see that people wanted to go beyond whatever their paradigm was and what's next kind of feeling. And I think that this is a what's next item. There's other things along that line, not just Urantia Revelation, that are what's next. There's new things coming in every category that are revolutionary. But I think in spirituality, this and things that are talking about the soul are what's next. Why? Because I think the other piece of it is what we have with near-death experience literature and stories it's part and parcel of this. And that's why the opening part of my book, I talk about near-death experience and the terrific movement around that, which is part of this what's next. Well, what's next is we need to know much more detail about the higher realms. And
absolutely.
The near-death experience is telling us in vivid terms with credible witnesses that come back, people like Eben Alexander, who are, a Harvard, doctor, people like that are changing the world because they've got real experience with higher dimensions. And this is what the Urantia book has been saying, for decades, and people haven't quite been ready. But I think now, and that's why, again,
I agree. I absolutely agree with you that now it's the time that the Urantia book, I think, is going to be able to stand on its own two legs. You know what I mean?
I think it's standing pretty well as of having been at their international conference, where a number of people from other religions were invited to come and listen in and also get up on panels and say, what did they feel about their a scripture that is commensurate with the scientific mentality. And the Urantia book has a very, very strong scientific, cosmological, astrophysical teaching that make the Bible's just like a color, like a cartoon book compared to this, because that's a flat Earth cosmology. Here the Urantia book is telling you that there are not just billions, but trillions of inhabited planets. And it has big sections on life on other planets, details in particular about the government of another planet, a whole chapter on how this other planet governs itself. Just like, can you believe it? It's like a 30-page chapter on that, and a big section on the types of extraterrestrials. That exist in the universe. There's I think about 10 types, a typology that they provide about life on other planets. Wow. Where do you get that in a scripture?
Oh, exactly. See, that's the part about the Bible that never really got me going, was because it's great with its stories about what people were doing here and the giants and the Nephilim and this and that, but it's always about here. It's never about heaven, quote unquote heaven, and what's out there. So, this is the time I think the Urantia book is, we're ready for it. We're ready for the answers it's going to give us. I just think it's an amazing book. I'm so glad you put out your book, though, because it does wrap things up for me. So I don't have to sit there and necessarily read the whole Urantia book unless I want to, right?
Well, a lot of people come to these Urantia study groups, and you can tell they're really into it. They're fervent about it. But they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got rent to pay, and they don't come back. But they often email me and say, I really want to come, I really want to, but I just can't make the time because I have so many issues, economic issues and family issues. and I totally get it. And so that's another reason why I did this book and why I'm speaking out, kind of late in my life here about this, because I know people want to know, but they can't find the time to read this huge tome. And somehow, I don't know why, I did. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a family, really. I've been married a few times, but I'd never had a family, kids.
Well, then you're right on the same path I am. I've never had children, and I've been married a few times, and I just always felt that my service was to others instead of having kids. And, I just knew, and I don't know about you, if that's how you felt too, but it just seems that's, it seems that a lot of people in this community that are really doing the yeoman's work, I'd say, never had a family because for some reason, the angels or the other dimensional beings always knew that we didn't have time for that. You know what I'm saying?
We had,
so
it's a biological function to have a family. It's kind of natural, but this is stuff that's cultural. It's
exactly.
We're designed to not just be biological. We're designed to be artists or people doing literature or doing culture or doing ufology. And you got to carve out a lot of time to follow these complicated, difficult, like your story about the MUFON conference. I mean, how could you have a family while you're trying to track with MUFON, which is such a mess.
Boy, that's the truth. That's all I got to say about that. I'm telling you.
David Wilcock and Corey Good and all these, machinations.
All these players, I know. I'm telling you.
And I do the same.
Yeah, there's one part to this that I didn't get to say is that, my job must be the agitator for all of these groups, because it seems to me that they all run screaming the other direction when they see me coming. And I don't know what it is, but my angels did tell me my path was not going to be the easy path on this. It was going to be to open the eyes of people that thought they were on the righteous path, and to realize that maybe they were doing something that was a little more self-serving, and that they needed to understand that it wasn't necessarily that way. And I get to be the antagonist. And I'm not saying that's a great position to be in, because I'm not sure if many people are going to put up with me much longer. But, the reality is somebody's got to do it, and I guess it was me. So what is, I've always wanted to ask you this. What does the Urantia book say about people that are like that are kind of like the Mythbusters or the, of the Urantia world? Do they have people like that in there? Do the angels talk about that?
Yeah, they really do. I mean, these are the leaders of humankind. These are the innovators that create the great religions, or that invent new governmental structures. That definitely talks about the heroes of history, all down through the ages.
Cool.
That many of them are spiritually inspired, or they're angelically guided to do that. Christ is one, of course, but it talks about other the Hebrew prophets, for example. The Hebrew prophets were doing the same work. They were gadflies in their community who got killed, for it. And that's a function that is absolutely necessary. And it's important when you're talking about the Urantia book, to realize that it's even more important to have such people, because the planet took a wrong turn in its prehistory, and the dark side of the planet prevailed for a very long time, and still does in the form of the cabal right now. And that's why, especially, we have gadflies, journalists, prophets who get in big trouble. They get killed. Mm-hmm. They get assassinated. They have there's more for them. There's more of the corruption here than on a typical planet, we're told in the Urantia book.
Really?
By far. Oh, very much so. That's one of the...
Oh, my God. Well, what's their take on the Bilderbergers? Do they have any take on any of these evil guys that are running this place? I mean, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why the Urantia book is so long, is they're telling you I think we broached a little bit last time, Lorien, about the Lucifer Rebellion.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting. But this is a whole new audience, and they don't know much about it. And sadly, we only have 8 minutes left in the show. But if you could touch upon it a little bit, I think that'd be wonderful.
Well, it's important for folks interested in ufology to know that the quarantine of our planet that is sometimes talked about is because the planet was victimized by its own angelic host, in that the angels of planet Earth, that is Urantia, the name of our planet, Urantia, went to the dark side in prehistoric times. There was a rebellion in the heavens that's spoken about in the book of Revelation in the Bible in very kind of cartoonish terms. But the Urantia book gives you a straight story about what happened and why things are so complicated here. And they say this is not typical of other planets. Other planets don't have a Holocaust. They don't have a World War II. They don't have atrocities like this in their modern era. They may have it in their pre-modern eras when people are kind of barbaric, but in a highly technological era, it's 1 in a million planets, literally.
Well, that makes total sense. I mean, it just makes total sense to me because I don't understand any of it. I don't get it, but that's okay. I'm not supposed to, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, you're getting it, with these new teachings, Urantia being one of them, which is saying the truth about the planet is that there has been a cabal running the planet, both off planet and on planet. They work together, and they have steered the planet in the wrong direction, which is why the Hebrew prophets were all killed, including Christ, and why somebody like Martin Luther King gets killed or Robert F. Kennedy gets killed, etc. That's not typical on other planets, that they assassinate their best people. And so the Urantia book goes on and on and on about life on other planets being much more progressive, much more spiritual. And that's why they had to give us this big revelation to explain, we are here to help you get out of this. You didn't even create this situation, you humans. You are victims of the celestial realm. Now, I know that sounds, kind of scary, but if you think about it, it's plausible.
Yeah.
That this is not a universe where every planet has, atrocity, genocide, throughout.
Yeah.
That is not the design of our Creator. This is an anomalous situation that they're doing remediation for, all kinds of remediation. And the extraterrestrials are part of that. That is, the positive extraterrestrials are part of the remediation. And it's very, very delicate situation because the cabal, the human aspect of the cabal, is still in power in most cases and trying to repel the gifts we're getting. In fact, it is my view that the Urantia book itself has been suppressed by these forces so that the population doesn't know about it.
Right. And that makes sense to me because, it just seems to me that it's always been out there, but always not within our reach because there's too much to digest. And I sometimes wonder if it might be that the angels already knew this and they gave it to you all in one big chunk because they knew it would be some time out here on this planet before it actually got to be able to be digested. I guess what I'm trying to say is thank God for your book. Because the reality is I don't think they understand time like we do. So it's been 20 years since the seed got into your mind to kind of get the revelations of the Urantia book out there. But how long has the Urantia book been in existence?
1955 it was first printed.
Okay, so it's 62 years old, and maybe 62 years to them is a blink of the eye,
It is, and particularly when they're dealing with a dark and confused planet like this, they know that there was going to be difficulty getting this across, and that there would be opposition to the truth, particularly the truth about, Satanism and the Lucifer agenda. That those, the Urantia book is a huge expose of Luciferianism. So you don't think they're going to try to suppress it in the media. The media never covers this, of course.
Oh, never. Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Only adventurous and courageous people like you cover it, and those are the people that interview me exclusively.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Never fails, does it, that the people out there that actually don't understand what's going on. Well, we do understand what's going on this planet. We understand that there's a lot of evil going on. And, we speak the truth as best we can. Those are the people that have Urantia people on their show, right?
That's, like Midland, what is it, Midnight in the Midlands? Or
Late Night in the Midlands with Michael Vara. Yeah, Mike's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he covers this, for example. He's courageous and has covered it, even though he doesn't quite, understand what I'm talking about.
To them, it isn't the sexy thing, and I get that, but to me, it is. To me, it's about spirituality, your soul, and in the end, it's all about love. And that's what really, I was told so many years ago that it truly is. In the end, it's all about love. When I was a teenager, they told me that. And it's been my driving force since I had my first vision when I was first big vision when I was about 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I had all kinds of visions, but that one was the one where I became one with the cloud in the universe. Wow. And the cloud in the universe was a mass consciousness of love. Wow. And I knew then that that's where I came from, and I never understood being here. Never got this place.
Well, that's just it. We're kind of like aliens down here that are stuck, and we're trying to sort of get out of here. But the good thing about it, and what my book is also about, is that the people that live on messed up planets get bigger souls as a result, because they have to make these hard choices almost every day, and the harder, the more adversity that you face, the more you develop this toughness that, as I was saying, is what the soul is the record of your significant and spiritual decisions. There's a part of us that saves that in and as the soul. And so that what is said in the Urantia book is the people that come from planet Earth are the most honored people in the higher realms, because we've dealt with the front lines of darkness and evil, and we've survived.
Wow. Well, I gotta say, on that note, it's the end of the show, and I can't believe it. So tell people how they can get your book, because this book is fabulous, folks. I've already pawed through it many times. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I pawed through it enough to know it's really, really good. So go ahead, tell them how to get it.
Well, if you're near a bookstore, get it at the bookstore. I prefer that, but the Amazon, is got the ships right away, and they have a lot of good reviews on there, by the way. So just wherever you buy books, you can find my book, Your Evolving Soul.
And it's at say the website one more time, because I always botch it for you.
It's evolving-souls, SOULS.org, evolvingsouls.org, with a hyphen, and
with
please
the hyphen in between.
Sign up and get my updates, because I'm going to do a much more updating blogs, and actually starting a podcast as well pretty soon.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I look forward to that. I'll probably be listening, so that'll be great. Oh, love it. And one last thing I want to say, folks, go to LorienFenton.com. That's LORIENFENTON, myname.com, and check out my birthday party that will be coming up and posted by Sunday night. It'll be on August 19th here in Northern California, and it's about a $20 or $25 price to get in. And it's a benefit for my kitty cats, and you can find out their little story over at MUFONMarinSonoma.com right now. That's MUFON, MarinSonoma.com. Check out August 19th on the schedule of meetings. There'll be much more and a place to buy your ticket. It's going to be a potluck. There's going to be people playing music, and there's going to be people Skyping in from all over the world to say hi to me and say hi to you guys and talk about their experiences. And Byron will probably be there as well. And gosh, who knows who's going to show up. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in Northern California, please stop by and have fun with us. Like I said, it benefits my cats. The story as to what's going on with it is on the website. That's MUFONMarinSonoma.com for now. By Monday, check out LorienFenton.com. It'll have everything up there about the party. So great. Hope you guys do it. I'm going to leave you with this from Max in the chat room. And I'm sorry I didn't get to questions tonight. But Max says, the flat earth is not possible. If the earth were flat, the cats would have already knocked everything off. So there you go, folks. That's the wisdom from Max in chat. You guys have a great night, great week, and we'll see you next time here on California MUFON Radio. Good night, everybody.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.